Okay, so I'm going to show a few things. The main, topic that I want to cover today is using a count variable and how it can help you with a couple of different games. So I'm going to use it in Shooter, and then I'm going to show how that count variable can help you animate an image in another project. So I'm going to start with Shooter, and the way that Shooter works right now, I have this bullet, but like I can just kind of I'm holding down space, and it's like kind of like an automatic. Okay, so I don't want it to do that. So one thing that you can do, and the reason it's doing that is every time act is called, if I'm hitting space or a space is down, then it's adding a bullet to the world and doing all that. Okay, setting its rotation and letting it go. So what I want to do is to create a count variable and essentially only be able to do this, the space key where it shoots, sometimes when the count variable gets big enough. And then when the count variable gets big enough, I'm going to let it shoot, and then I'm going to set count back to 0. And then it's going to count up every time. So the way that it works, I guess you would consider it like a field. This is default value is set to 0 here, but I'll just do it anyway. Count 0. When a player is created, count 0. And in act, every time I'm going to increment. So like this, this is another way of saying that. So take the current count, add 1 to it, and then add it back to count. That's how assignment works in programming. It's not an equal sign like in math. You're not saying that count is equal to count plus 1. You're just setting this equal to that. So I'm going to do that every time. And a shortcut way to say that is count plus plus. But this will happen every time. But what I'm going to do here is if the count variable is at least, and I'll have to play around with it here, let's say 50. And that's an and symbol. So two things have to be true now before I'm actually going to shoot a bullet. Count's got to be at least 50, and is key down has to be getting pressed. Okay, and if it is, then I will shoot a bullet. Okay, and then if I shoot a bullet, I'm going to do all that stuff the same thing. Then I'm going to set count back to 0. So think about this act method is going to get continually called. Act, act, act. And then every time the count's going to get bigger. So this starts off at 0, then it's going to go to 1, then it's going to go to 2, then it's got to go all the way up to 50 before you could ever shoot a bullet. But 50 counts of act happens pretty quick. So let's see what it does. I'll run. But see, now if I hold it down, you can't fire it continuously. It has to have some time before you can shoot it again. So that kind of helps that idea out. One thing that you can do also with a Greenfoot project, if you work with like I guess basic Java, you'll have like an IDE like BlueJ or Eclipse or something like that, and you'll print a lot of stuff, especially when you're first starting out. You'll print a lot of stuff to the terminal window just to kind of see what it is, like see what the variable is holding at that time. So if I do that in Greenfoot, you can see it'll probably pop up, I'm thinking, separately when I hit run. It'll be up here. Yep. So this thing, and I can see it. This is, well, how do I get to it? Let's see. I guess it won't do it while it's running. So, but you can see, you will be able to see when I stop it, that count's just getting bigger and bigger. Now when I hit space, I'm just printing it out. Now when I hit space, try it again. Alright, so now it shoots. And it still takes that time. But if I look at trying to get you to see what count was doing, but it works. So I know it's coming up because it pulled it up. It's there. For some reason, it's not showing. Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, it's not showing, but just take my word for it. That count is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it gets set back to 0 every time that you shoot a bullet. Okay, so I think I'm going to kind of to keep with that same theme. I'm going to show you another use of a count variable, and I'm still going to come back to shooter and get shooter to interact with the enemy and things like that. But I have another project pulled up. I haven't given it a background yet, so I'm going to just set my image to a background. But you can see here, anytime you create a project in Greenfoot, you get an images folder. So I have uploaded these 4 bird images, little Twitter bird images, into the images folder. I have bird 1 or 01, bird 02, bird 03, and bird 04. So they're kind of, as soon as you put them in that images folder, they will come up right here. So like you can add the image. I could add the image of the entire world to be bird. I'm just going to get kind of a right now. Oh, maybe not this. All right. So this will be my background. And so right now, what I've done to get started, I'll kind of back up. Okay, is you can set the image in Greenfoot to an image in this editor right here. Set image. But you can also do it in code, and the power of doing it in code in a class is that the image can change. So that set image is what it starts off as in the constructor right here, essentially. But that's what it is when it starts. But like I can also set the image in an act method, meaning if something happens, I can set the image to something else. Okay, so I have those 4 bird images that I have uploaded into the images folder. And when a bird is created, it gets the first one. So I'll show you that. If I right click a bird, put it in the world, that's it. So it doesn't do anything, but that's my image of my bird object. Okay, and one thing I'll do just to keep from having to redo that, to right click it into the world, is I'll create a bird object. And there's no parameters, there's no additional information that I need to give a bird right now. It doesn't have any characteristics. We might add them later. But there's a bird object. Okay, so now hopefully, I need to add it to the world. So the reason I'm doing this, just like I did with the shooter, when I reset this, that would be when I reset the game, every time there will be a bird object at x coordinate 300, y coordinate 200, which is right in the middle of the world. Okay, so if I change it, inspect it, whenever I reset it, comes right back there. This is kind of like the start of my game. And it's a little big right now, so I could probably scale that image, but it should get the point across. So what I want to do is I want to create a count variable and increment that count variable like I did in shooter. But every now and then I'm going to change the image of the bird to be the next picture. So it's kind of like a flip book in that it'll go bird 1, bird 2, bird 3, bird 4 really fast, and it'll look like the bird is flapping. So if I showed you same idea, private int count, and I could set it to be 0 there, or I could set it to be 0 in this constructor, either way. If I say if count, so first do the same thing I did before, increment it, which means add 1 to it every time. So counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so forth like that. So if I did something like if count is 1, or count is 0, do bird 0, 1. If it's 1, do like every step of count. I'll show that instead of saying something like that. So if count is equal to 0, set image, which I don't really have to do. Okay. So if I did this, in fact, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, because if I did that, notice how last time 50 calls of act happened really, really quickly. So this is going to happen so fast where it looks like you're not even going to see the change in the image of the bird. It's happening so fast. It would be faster than what a hummingbird would look like. It would be like you would just look like the same image. So instead of doing this, let me do it as far as let's say if count is, I'll start it to be 10. I really have to play around with this. So if it's greater than 10, set it to 1. If it's greater than 20, so now I can't just set it immediately back to, since there's 4 images now, and not just being able to shoot yes or no, which is like 2 things. Now there's 3 things. So I'm going to let count get bigger and bigger. And you could copy and paste some of this stuff, because the only thing that's different is the number. Okay, so this last one, what I'm going to do is make sure, similar to what I did before, whenever I set the birds to the 4th image, because let's see, yeah, because when it gets to 40, it will become bird 4, the 4th image. But then I want to set count back to 0, because then whenever count goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, now when it's 10, or I guess 11, it goes back to bird 1. So it kind of cycles back over and gets that same procedure. So count just gets, essentially, whenever it becomes anything bigger than 40, when it gets 41, it gets that last image, sets count back to 0. So then count starts back over and goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and it goes back to bird 1. So the first thing we're going to do is run this. Let's see. (942). So notice that when I inspected the bird, the count was at 942. So something's off in the code. Let me go back and look at it.